Hi everybody, I'd like to spend a few minutes today talking to you guys about how I do morning work in my classroom. Now this is for a third grade classroom and a fourth grade classroom. I haven't really made a lot of morning work for any other grade levels. So to start with, we keep everything in a 3-ring binder. Now I do not buy a class set of binders every year. Give my students a little incentive where at the beginning of the year, I say, if you can bring these back to me at the end of the year in usable condition, they get some kind of small treat. And usually I'll have to replace, maybe 7 or 8 out of 40, but still it beats having to buy a whole new set. And I just print out a cute little label for their morning work binder, and then I add tabs where we have number of the day, weekly word problems, and language arts morning work. Now, I send home all completed morning work once a month. So say at the end of August, I'll take everything out, staple it, and send that home. Now, what you add at the beginning of the year is completely up to you. I really prefer adding everything over the summer simply because it saves me work during the school year. And for 90% of the students, that works perfectly. I will be the first to admit there's always going to be that one student who somehow drops every single paper out of the binder and we have to reorganize them. So there is that drawback, but at the same time, I'm not having to, I got to refill their morning work folders. So it's kind of a which do you prefer? So the first thing in students' morning work binder is their weekly word problems. Now I do have this separate for third grade and a fourth grade version. Now in the weekly word problems, what students do is solve 3 word problems Monday, and you can see it's indicated Monday's word problems. They have Tuesday's word problems, Wednesday's words problems, Thursdays, and then on Friday students will be asked to write a specific type of word problem. Now these are very intentionally written word problems. You'll notice that the context of every single word problem for Monday will be the same, and that's intentional. I didn't write, almost 500 word problems and just kind of like, let's just reuse that name. I did it intentionally so that students, they would be forced to think about the context of the math, the context of the word problem. They weren't focusing on the name and the situation, but instead they were focusing on, am I adding, and am I subtracting, am I multiplying, or am I dividing? So this is an intentional thing. Now, in third grade and in fourth grade, the word problems get increasingly more difficult as the year progresses. I'm not going to expect a third grader to walk in the door knowing how to multiply. So there's not going to be any multiplication or division problems in August, but as these are introduced in the curriculum, then I'm introducing them into the weekly word problems. And the same thing goes for fourth grade. At the beginning of fourth grade, I know that my students aren't going to be able to multiply a 2-digit by a 2-digit number, but this will all be gradually introduced. Now, this is by far the best thing I have ever done to help my students learn how to solve word problems. There are some multi-step word problems. There's lots of different types of word problems where it may be a joining problem and the start's unknown. They're not all using the exact same keywords or the exact same structure. Now, I do require my students to show the number sentence on how they solved it. I will have students who know instantly what the answer is, but I really do want students to show me their number sentences. So there are a few things I love as much as my number of the day. Now this has tons of different options for you. I've combined this product into a third and fourth grade product just because in third and fourth grade there's so much differentiation that may overlap with grade levels. Thought it would be best to go ahead and include this together. So I just want to show you an overview of the different versions of the number of the day. This is the version 1. It's going to be a 4-digit number. Students will write the number in expanded form and written form. They will round it to the nearest 10 and to the nearest 100. They'll determine what's 100 more, 100 less, 1,000 more, 1,000 less. They complete a place value table. In the unknown number, we're trying to come up with a number sentence, an addition and a subtraction number sentence that equals the number of the day. You can include an unknown number in that. Students compare numbers. This one is when they compare the first two digits and the last two digits. Students will model a fraction. There's a fact family, and some of these where you think, oh, that's confusing, I don't get how you're supposed to model a fraction. There are explicit directions for the teacher and for the students, and there are lots of examples. I have example answer keys, and I've been using this for many years, and it's never one time been a problem for me. So that's the first version. And then in the second version, this would be what I would start using around the middle of third grade. It gets a little bit more challenging. Your biggest difference is that you're going to now have a multiplication and division fact family. Students are going to be showing the last two digits as a multiplication fact, 2 times 7. So they'll show that with an array and with repeated addition. And they will solve that. They're going to write different multiplication problems with the commutative property, with the associative property, and they'll be doing something with the distributive property. This is an excellent review. Now, this should not take more than 10 minutes, but if you're like me, you're always crunched on time and you're always crunched on paper and copies. So what I started doing was I would have students do the top half one day and the bottom half the next day. So it would really be 2 days on the same page, and that's just a little time-saving tip. Then I did run into the occasional student who couldn't get everything to fit, because to keep everything on one page, I did have to make things small, which is good in the sense of it saves paper and copies, but it's bad for your students who need space. So I've included larger spaced versions for students who may need a little extra room. And then I also included a modified version for students who are just not ready for those 4-digit numbers. So I have a different version where it's just 3-digit numbers, and I'll use that as needed. And then when I was teaching 4th grade, I started adding more to this number of the day. Now, obviously, the first thing you'll see is that we're now working with 6-digit numbers. And students are going to write that in expanded form and written form, but now in 4th grade, I'll also have them write the number in expanded notation. Then students are going to be telling me what are the multiples of the last digit in the number of the day through 100, which was super challenging for my students last year. And then students are also going to use the last 2 digits of the number of the day, which would be 92 in this one, and they would have to write all the factor pairs for the number of the day. Then we're going to do what's 10 times greater, what's 100 times greater, what's 1,000 times greater. Then students will practice a little bit of 3-digit plus 3-digit and 3-digit minus 3-digit. And then students are also going to multiply the last 4 digits by the first digit, and they have to show that with the area model with partial product and distributive property. And obviously students could also use the traditional algorithm in that section as well. And once again, this sounds like, wow, that's a lot to do in a day. You can break it up into 2 days, but once students are in the rhythm, this does not take much time at all. I found that my students were finishing, some students could finish that in 5 minutes. And then there is a different version of the 4th grade. And in this one of the biggest differences is that I've added a divisibility table where it says circle any number the number of the day is divisible by. I talked to the 5th grade teachers at my school, and that was one thing they really wanted our students to work on, was understanding divisibility rules. So I've added that into there. And students will also be dividing using the number of the day, 4-digit by 1-digit division with an area model and a partial product. So this is just a great way to review all the standards. We do go over this together every single day, but this is just a great spiral review that can be differentiated. So I've also created a language arts morning work. Now with this, I did separate 3rd and 4th grade. So in the 3rd grade version, we have a different task set of 7 questions on Monday. There will be another 7 on Tuesday, and it's labeled so students will know exactly week 1, Monday. They're going to circle the noun. They capitalize the proper noun. choose which verb best completes the sentence. I really like on Tuesdays when they're choosing the best definition for the underlined word. You know, there's homophones, comparative and superlative adjectives. Students will be identifying all parts of speech, changing verb tenses, combining sentences, telling fact and opinion, giving the meaning of idioms. Every single standard is reviewed through this morning work. And then fourth grade's going to be the same way. The only difference is these will match your fourth grade standards. Some of them, of course, will be the same. Some of them will be different. Students will be finding prefixes, ordering adjectives. So this is a fantastic review. These do not take long to go over. Now, I will say that at the beginning of the year, it's kind of unrealistic to expect students to know how to do all of this. So we'll start with just number 1, the first week of school. The second week of school, we're going to do number 1 and 2. And then the third week of school, we'll do 1, 2, and 3. And then so forth until we're able to do them all. So to be perfectly honest with you, I do not have a lot of time in my day built in for grammar instruction. We do a little bit of mentor sentences with our writing, and I hit and miss it, but there's not a huge chunk of time for grammar. So this is what saves me, and by doing this on a daily basis, my students are still able to identify and correctly use parts of speech. So this has just been a tremendous help for me because as much as I wish that there's not enough time in the day for me to do every single thing I need to do. So that's what we do on a regular basis for morning work. Now after I finish going over morning work, we transition into our number talks. That would be a whole other video. Now some of the most common questions I've had about morning work is, do I grade it? I do not enter a grade in my grade book for morning work. I look at this as a learning opportunity for us. So we go over it together. I allow students, require students to correct their mistakes. This isn't something where I look at it as a, I gotcha, I tricked you away, but as a growth and learning opportunity. Now, for students who arrive the second the bell rings and they don't have time to do all of it, I'm not going to penalize them. There's not going to be a consequence. They can just simply fill in the answers as we go over it together. For me personally, I rarely have that happen just because this really, even though it seems like a lot, once we're in the rhythm, it does not take students long at all. I have plenty of students arrive the second the bell rings who can still finish. But in the event that they don't, we don't turn this into a power struggle with students because I want them to enjoy it and I want them to learn through it. These are all things that could be sent home for homework if you so choose. This isn't what I do, but it's just another option. I think that it's really good to make things flexible for students. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me and have a great afternoon.